into the picture a little better. Is that something that you're from? Are we relating here? And then my question is, okay, so you said that your sessions drink well right away. Do you think because they're a lower ABV, it doesn't take as long for the dumb phase to get done, and the honey can step up sooner because of the low ABV, or do you think it's something different? Or do you think it would taste more honey-wise if you could let it age for, say, 4 months or 6 months?
Right. I think they all go through roughly the same cycle, which is, that 4 to 6 month period, you start to get the honey really starts to come out in the flavor and the aroma more. And I've noticed that with pretty much across the board with all of our stuff. I think that's universal. How much of it is in the case of for instance, the Haven, which is peach and ginger, the ginger starts to fall off fairly rapidly after about 4 to 6 months. So how much of that is because the honey is just coming out versus the other flavors dropping off?
Or dropping back.
No,
yeah, right.
It's hard to say there.
I can tell you that ginger does fall off with time. Because I've made a couple of things with ginger in it, and it very definitely does, and it's got nothing to do with whether there's honey coming back or not. It does definitely fade.
Well, and
as does cloves and hops, as we've already mentioned.
I had the ginger peach tonight, and I bought that from you guys towards the end of July. And I'm guessing that it had been canned for maybe a month. I don't know. I don't know how long it had been canned. But I don't know. Does it say on the cans?
I think we were still putting our date on the cans back then. We actually stopped doing that because there were people who were concerned that the mead was too old and they wanted us to pull it off the shelf. So said, no. Actually, it's
that's
fine.
Not good. Yeah, I'm not seeing a date on this can, so.
Okay.
Yeah, this may have been, okay, so assuming this was canned in July, then August, September, October, it's coming on 4 months now, and the ginger was there. It had a ginger finish, and the ginger was there in the mid-palate, but there wasn't any ginger in the nose or in the beginning of the flavor. You got mostly honey, and then peach was behind that. And then, all through the mid-palate, it was the honey and the peach. And then there was some ginger in that finish. But it wasn't strong. It was just like, I recognize this as ginger rather than ginger, with a capital G. It was very mellow ginger. And very, I loved it. It was very great. I cleared up 2 cans here, so I'm down to a half a 4-pack, not to buy more. But, it's, but you're right. I think the ginger is dropping back on this. And I'm going to hang on to the other 2 cans for a little bit because I have to drink the hops mead now because now I know that the hops are dropping off. But
Vicki, that might not be a bad thing. I actually do a dry hopped mead that I sent a fresh bottle to somebody once, and he says, it tastes like Christmas trees. And I'm like, yeah, okay, well, you don't know what hops taste like. And that's fine. But I found that I actually like that particular batch that I make after it's aged for a year. And the hops are certainly there, but in a subdued way. And so it doesn't... You might find that aging out and allowing some of that hops...
Yeah.
I mean, maybe not in Eric's because his mind is to put that there so it stays up front. But I've made some stuff where after my hops have gotten tired and kind of laid down is when I find that it really fits into my overall profile as a fraction. And so...
Yeah, well, a lot of that depends on the hops you use and the amount of hops you use.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many variables there. I mean, right. just taking a different hopped mead, Nectar of the Hops that Redstone does. I've got a bottle of that's 6 or 7 years old. And now he's doing his in glass. Now, I don't know if there's any variation there with that versus cans, but... the hops are still there. They're very recognizable. They haven't dropped off a lot from the ones I drank that were, like 6 months old. So, I think a lot of it, is variant on what you use and how much you use as well. So yeah, I mean, I'm not a big fan of like in-your-face hops with a capital H. It's not my thing. I want hops that are well integrated with the mead. In a hopped mead. I love hopped meads. Don't get me wrong. I love a hop. I've got packages of hops, and I'm going to try that this winter too. But it's. I think a lot of that's going to depend. But now you've got me curious. So next week I'll be drinking Meridian Hive hopped mead, and we'll see what it does. I'll tell you. Okay. Listen to the show, Eric, and you'll find out.
Great.
Eric, have we? Is there anything more that you want to tell our listeners? Anything on your plate that you want to still speak of?
Oh yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is that since we're talking session means here, I got to tell you, we're starting to foray into this more, and I wish that I had time a long time ago to get into this, but honestly, we were just so busy and focused on growing the business that this was just a side thing. But we've started working on it more, which is making mead cocktails. And session means or as we call them, our draft meads. We have found a lot of cocktails, and our customers have many bars in Austin have started making their own cocktails with these meads. So it's a great base because you've got this sort of. It's a lot more interesting than seltzer water because you have all this flavor and the honey, and then you can build on that. So. That's something that I would encourage people to give a try. What I'm drinking right now is a cocktail that I created, which is what I call hard raspberry lemonade. So it's 50-50 blend of fresh lemonade and Rhapsody, which is our blackberry mead made with orange blossom honey. Yep, and then to that I add just a splash of citrus bitters and a shot of vodka, and so I'm sort of diluting the alcohol in the mead, but then I'm getting that back with the vodka, and so I end up with about a 7% cocktail, and it's awesome. So that's become one of my house favorites cocktails. There are many things that our customers have done. Mead mosas are great with our Frontier. Our hopped mead makes a wonderful mead mosa. Just pour that in with some orange juice, and that's a lovely Sunday morning beverage with your brunch.
Sounds wonderful.
So hopefully that'll get people's wheels turning and get some ideas.
I've been playing with mead tails lately and seeing what I can come up with, because there's some interesting stuff there, especially with the sessions, and I picked up a lot of those on my trip. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So hopefully that gives some folks some ideas to try, and it's just another excuse to make session mead. So there you go.
Yeah. Oh, David Webb is saying your Fandango margaritas are awesome.
Oh gosh, yes.
And somebody, Brandon was asking, is Frontier dry hopped or are the hops boiled at all?
No, Frontier is dry hopped at 1 pound per barrel, and we've been doing so that's one thing that we fix the hops at 1 pound per barrel, and so the hop character we've been playing with. We recently did Simcoe, we did Citra, we just canned our first Mosaic batch last week. Yeah, and it's a dank. So I'm absolutely loving that one because I'm a big IPA guy myself.
Oh yeah, see, I'm not IPA. Give me a Citra. I like Citra.
Yeah, the Citra was just this beautiful citrus. It almost comes out as almost a lemony. And it was just absolutely wonderful. So we may do quite a bit more of that one. That was also a crowd pleaser. But even at the same rate of hopping, there's such a diversity in the intensity and the character and the flavor of the hops. So it's been really fun to play with that. And we put the the hop that's in it is on the bottom of the can. So some of our earlier ones, it won't say on the bottom, but now it should say what hops were in it on the bottom of the can.
My cord's not long enough to run down to the basement and check. Now they're sitting. The 4-packs are sitting on the basement stairs where I stashed them because the racks are full, so they're sitting at the bottom of the basement stairs. Chris Hodge is asking.
It may be the.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
That may be the Citra from the time frame of when you visited.
Yes, I want to say that's what you guys told me when I was there.
Yeah.
I know there was that big old party going on, so, I managed to be, I timed it so that I was at Meridian Hive for Mead Day. So
nice.
It was like, woohoo! It was great. David brought barbecue, and oh god, that was such good cue. Oh my god. All right. Chris Hodge says, isn't the legal limit for commercially hopped meads like 1 per 1,000 by 1 per 1,000 by volume?
Yes, that's true. If we were calling it mead. But since we classify it as other than standard wine, and we label it, as long as we label it consistent with an other than standard wine, then we can use more hops. So that's a good point. But the asterisk there is that the TGB will not allow us to use more than 1 pound per 1,000 gallons until after fermentation. So we can't hop it in primary, which is strange. So, but I'm not a government person, so I don't know where they come up with these rules. But you can pretty much do whatever you want in the formula as long as the hops are somehow added before or after the fermentation. So
we've also got a question from David Webb.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He wants to know, do you use Meridian in your frontier still?
We do still use Meridian for a lot of our batches. So we do have a sizable Meridian contract. So we will continue. We're gonna run out that contract, and we'll probably be looking for a Citra contract unless we find a hop that we like better, since Citra is so popular.
Eric, what's the difference in the flavor profile when you put the same amount of hops in the same species in up front versus on the backside? How's that play out different in the finished profile?
So since we have to add everything in secondary, I haven't played with adding the hops up front. That's something that we haven't done, and I never did any pilots as a homemade maker. I never did anything with hops until we went commercial.
Right. Okay.
And actually, that was one of those where we actually didn't do a pilot. We just made a big batch one day on a whim and said, "That'll probably be good."
I got given a half dozen little packages of hops when I was at. I got taken to a homebrew club meeting with Susan Rude when I was in North Dakota, and so she dragged me off to her homebrew club, and they had this giant box of little sample packages of hops. So I've got a Citra and a Meridian and 2 other ones that escape me at the moment. They're in my stash, but I'm planning on messing with them because I have no idea what they're going to do. I haven't a clue. I don't know. I don't make beer, so I don't know from hops. I mean, I'm just going to screw with it and see what happens.
Yeah, and the character that you get in a mead is very different than what you get in a beer. Without having the proteins in there that you have in beer, you don't get the same flavor extraction from the hops. The aroma is pretty similar, I think, but the flavor is drastically different.
It'll be interesting to see what it does. I'm curious, and I've got these, and I'm not going to do any beers, so I'm going to throw them into a mead and see what happens. But yeah, that'll be pretty interesting. So, what new and interesting things are you guys up to that you can tell us about?
Barrel projects. So that's something that we've been wanting to do for a while. I mentioned the lack of storage space at the hive, so as far as aging things, we got to keep our tanks turning over. We don't really have a lot of space to store finished goods. But barrels are actually pretty convenient to store because they stack on racks. And it turns out that mead actually ages in barrels pretty nicely. So we are